Way back. Oh yeah, check this out.
Back in the days when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore. But some days I sit and wish I was a kid again. Back in the days when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore. But some days I sit and wish I was a kid again. Back in the days
when I was just a little kid, I looked up to my bigger bro, begged if I could kick it. So when he went out with girls, I could go tagging along, nagging. If she had a sis, maybe could mac a baby hood rat. Y'all remember way back then when it was 1985, all the way live. I think I was about 10. One of those happy little singing the blues.
You are listening to the Black Pack. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, here at KBLA Talk 1580. And wow, back in the day, Andy, every day I feel like I wish that we were back in the day. Back in the day isn't even 20 years ago. It's like 8 months ago. And I guess that in many ways, your little president might wish that he was actually back in the day too, because we are approaching the 100-day mark of the Trump administration. And as we get closer and closer to this milestone, it appears that Americans in general are not amused by the current president. There are new poll numbers out. Many of you may have seen them, but in case you didn't, I'm going to share them with you, that say that essentially he is underwater on everything. He's underwater on the issues. There's a new New York Times Siena poll out that shows that 54% of Americans disapprove of how he is handling his job. 54% disapprove of how he is handling his job. 66% of Americans think that Trump's second term is chaotic. 59% say that his second term is scary. 54% say that he has gone too far. People say he's failing on almost every issue that he is moving on. People say he is failing on immigration. People say he is failing on managing the federal government. People say that he is failing on trade, that he is failing on foreign relations, that he is failing on the Ukraine war, and that he is failing on deportations, right? These are all issues that he has said at one time or another, or people in his administration have said at one time or another that he has a mandate on. Right. He won the election and therefore he has a mandate. But in this new poll, and this is the New York Times poll is only one of a number of polls that have come out in the last few days, where his approval numbers are as bad as they are in this New York Times poll. He is voters do not trust him on the economy. Now, this is the thing that, people want to say is the reason why they elected him. But they no longer trust him on the economy. And the reason being is because of all the things that we've seen. The stock market crashes every other day. It feels like prices have not come down. We're seeing job losses, not just in the federal government, but in the private sector as well. So people don't trust him on the economy anymore. They do not like Elon Musk. So the idea that, just simply because he put in money to buy the presidency, that somehow people were going to approve of him taking over our government, that appears to be not a thing that people want. So, the question is, if his numbers are this bad on literally everything, right? People are afraid, right? 59%, I think I said 59% of Americans think that his second term is scary. If people are afraid, the question really is, so what are people willing to do about it? And so I think that there is, when they try and say that all these protesters that are showing up at outside of Tesla dealerships, when, people talk about the impact of people withholding their money from other corporations, whether it's Target or any of the others that have been targeted for, kind of economic protest over the last few months. I think that it is a reflection of these poll numbers, right? So, of course, Trump and Musk and others try and say that people are being paid, that these are paid actors showing up at these protests, but clearly not. And these numbers reflect the degree to which the American people, many of whom I'm assuming voted for him, now realize that maybe they made a mistake on all of the issues that many people said that they voted for him on, yes, the economy, but also on immigration. So as he's rolling around disappearing people under the cover of darkness, it turns out Americans actually don't like that, right? It turns out that Americans actually don't like people being sent off to torture prisons in other countries with, one, period, right? And then secondly, sending people off or picking people up with zero due process and planning to deport them. So Americans apparently don't like that. So there's a question about what are people willing to do beyond the protests? What are folks willing to do when we got upcoming elections? What are folks going to be willing to do, both to send a message and to stop the madness or to stop what they say is scary? So we're seeing, every day across the country, people are saying no. People are saying they're not going to comply. Some of you may have been tracking all of the companies who are coming out and saying we don't care what the government says or what extreme activists say when they telling corporations to get rid of diversity efforts. We saw a number of companies step forward and say, no, actually, we're keeping our programs because they work for us. We saw this week Levi Strauss and company come out and say, no, they're folks overwhelmingly voting down a proposal that would have ended their diversity efforts. Maybe that Beyonce Levi's commercial, has something to do with it. Like they're like, no, we want to keep the people who want to buy our jeans. But they said no, right? We see nonprofits and other civil society groups speaking out and sounding the alarm around what this administration is trying to do. We're seeing wins across, as we have been, right, in court cases across the country, and more court cases piling up, whether it's against the administration as a whole, their executive orders, or against the Department of Education. And the more that they continue to do kind of outrageous things, the more pushback we're going to see. So, when Trump said that he would be a dictator, he said he'd be a dictator on day one, and he, talked about what that might look like. And then we saw some of it today. We saw a judge in Milwaukee get arrested by the FBI. Right. So now we're jailing judges. Right. Because she refused to cooperate with this law enforcement complete and total overreach in terms of going after undocumented folks. So she said she wouldn't cooperate. She was arrested today. So we're seeing folks, even with people pushing back and saying, organizations, institutions, corporations pushing back and saying no, including some of the now institutions of higher education, Harvard obviously being the one that stands out, and some law firms pushing back and saying, no, we won't comply. No, we won't bend the knee. They still continue to do, ridiculous, illegal, unlawful, probably unconstitutional things. And so we'll see, right? We'll see. These numbers are a reflection of what Americans think in this moment. We'll see if that continues to grow and whether that continues to build. But we know that people out there have a lot to say. We know that we talked last week, and we'll talk a little bit more about the State of the People Power Tour that's coming up, launching in Atlanta this weekend. And so we're going to talk about that and hear from some other folks throughout the hour about just what people think about what's happening right now, and the degree to which people believe that we may not be turning a corner, but we're at least approaching a corner at which Americans are going to say, no, this is not just the folks who've been saying it, right, but that others will begin to say, no, this is not the direction we want to go in. So when we come forward, we'll be joined by others to have this conversation. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the Black Pack. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580. If you missed our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall, the Altadena Eden Fire, 100 Days and Counting, you missed an evening of reverence, reflection, and reality.
You gotta live in the reality because this is it. Every day you wake up, is this my life? Don't stay in denial because yes it is. Don't stay in bargaining where you're praying for a miracle and if it wouldn't have happened, then this is what I would have done. It did.
Our panel participants kept it real. Really real.
I think, number one, it's amazing to me how we ignore systemic racism in our community, and as a people, we've apologized for so much, but when will we stop apologizing for what we have paid for? Because the truth of the matter is we paid for this.
You can always count on KBLA Talk 1580 to give it to you straight, no chaser. When you love folk, you tell them the truth. Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
Chuck McDowell here. If you were misled or lied to in any way when buying a timeshare, right now is your wake-up call. With the tariffs, economy tanking, and inflation rising, you might need to ask yourself this question. Is owning a timeshare a good idea? With all the economic uncertainty, you need to protect yourself and your family. Don't look back and say, if I'd have only got rid of that stupid timeshare they lied to me about. It's time to stop thinking about canceling your timeshare and finally get rid of it and be smart with your money. At Wesley Financial Group, we've saved 48,000 families an average of $65,000 in lifetime payments. Give us a call. I guarantee if we take you as a client, we will cancel your timeshare permanently or you'll pay nothing.
Call Wesley for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-954-3322. 800-954-3322. 800-954-3322.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to the Black Pack. I am Adrianne Shropshire. And I was talking earlier about just the data, right? The data flowing in about how Americans are feeling about what is happening in this country, and specifically what they are thinking about what is happening or their opinion, I guess I should say, on the current president and his administration. We know that folks are fighting back. We know that folks are organizing. We know that folks are getting ready for prepared for elections that are coming up. But I want to bring into this conversation Anoa Changa, who you all will remember we talked with last week. Anoa is a strategist and a journalist and is always tracking what is happening, both kind of from 30,000 feet, I guess I would say, Anoa, and also on the ground, because Anoa lives in Atlanta where things are always popping off. So is always having to pay attention, both for, to provide strategic advice for folks that she's working with, but also to be reporting out the latest and greatest. So welcome back, and thanks, Anoa, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Adrianne.
So I just want to talk about these latest poll numbers, right? What you're seeing in terms of folks, declaring. I hear your puppies in the background.
They got a lot to say about what's happening in America too, and it affects them too. These tariffs impact their food prices, so yeah.
Yes, but it's just your thoughts on what these latest poll numbers are saying to you about what's happening. I mean, I'm hesitant, right, to like put too much on it, right, because we're also, we also understand that, this same electorate just put this man in office, right? So I'm hesitant to put too much on these numbers right now. But what do you think it's suggesting about what is happening with folks and their opinion of the administration and of Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, Adrianne, I think the emperor has no clothes. I mean, we knew this already, but I think a lot of people are really seeing. I know folks have been talking about it for months now at this point, about how, the buyer's remorse, the F around and find out sentiment, but really understanding what these different things meant, what he was saying it, and it was real flippant, and everyone's ha, 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 and what this actually means in reality. Mm-hmm. I know the last time I joined you, we talked about the proposed cuts with changes at Social Security Administration. There's a lot of concern about what could happen with Medicaid. Mm-hmm. Just up and down the board. I just saw recently lawsuits around stays preventing executive orders from going into effect around the Department of Education's Dear Colleague letter that would be a blowback for students of color, disabled students with civil rights protection. So there's just so much happening, and people really didn't understand how these different things actually impact their direct lives. And the horror show that we are seeing right now with the deportations, the interrogation, just the complete disrespect for civil liberties and freedoms that we're seeing across the board, regardless of citizenship status. I think it's really kind of waking people up that this is one of those bad movies that we probably watched if you're a kid of the 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. We saw these things. If you remember the Cold War era, we were always told that this is what the evil empire in Russia and other places did. This is not supposed to be what America is about, allegedly, and yet here we are.
Yeah. Well, I think that's we started to see some of this at the Republican town halls, right? We started to see their constituents stand up and say, wait, what is happening? And what are you doing? We saw people pushing back around, the I don't even know what to say, the disrespect of veterans. We saw people pushing back around the layoffs that we saw in the federal government. And I think, again, people fundamentally not understanding, even though, hey, to be clear, right, the man said, here are the things I'm going to do. Right. So it is not legitimate for people to say we didn't know he was going to do this. He's doing exactly all the things that he said he was going to do. He's doing all the things that are in Project 2025. Right. So it wasn't like this, it wasn't foretold. But, even if people would, want to believe in their heart of hearts that they wanted him to just talk about the economy, that's falling apart. Right. And so people showed up at these town halls, and we began to see some of the disgruntled or remorseful, what do they call it? Remorseful buyer, whatever that term is.
Buyer's remorse.
Buyer's remorse. But these numbers seem to suggest that's actually very real and maybe more of it, right, than the administration thought. And I was surprised to see, because I think we've also heard lots about Social Security. You brought up Medicaid and Medicare and people being concerned about those things. But it does. I mean, I don't is there how should people think about this? Are we? I said we haven't turned a corner, but are we walking up on a corner that maybe we might turn around?
Well, I mean, it definitely is clear that people are hopefully seeing that we have to keep on the administration's neck and can't let up. And When the EOs came down this week about
let's talk about that.
Education EOs. There are a bunch of education EOs that came down last week, and most of them were very, very detrimental. I haven't gotten a chance to really read much about what people are saying about the HBCU executive order that he also put out, but that seemed like something he was going to try to slide in there to pacify people, because there was a pretty glaring one that has to do with basically banning, any of the work that we know around, dealing with racial disparities and gender disparities in discipline in school, the school to prison pipeline, like claiming that it's connected to DEI. They make all these absurd assumptions that aren't grounded in anything, not based in the fact. It's just like the anti-Christian bias nonsense that they're moving forward with as well. But it just seems like people need to understand, like, all these things are connected. You can't dismiss these quote-unquote culture issues as not my problem because I'm worried about my pocketbook. The culture issues, the pocketbook issues, the bread and butter, all of these things impact our experience in this country. And if people have a short memory, but what we need to fundamentally understand this go-round is that it's always been clear that Donald Trump has been absolutely about the upper echelon, and he's not even a billionaire, right? We mentioned this the last time he ran. Like, he is. You
don't like people saying that of Noah.
I know he don't, but he's not a billionaire. He's not even the richest person in his own administration, right? And so, like, he's trying to hang out with all these. I think we're on track to have trillionaires now. Like, it's wild. I can't even think of how many zeros that is right now on top of my head, but the thing is, like, there's this aspirational wealth thing that we also need to deal with, because we think somehow we getting good with this businessman or this person here. This is not like the local small business owner who does well, who might be involved in the community. These people, Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all the owner of Meta and the rest of those guys, they're at this pinnacle where they just want to dominate and have power. And that's across everything. That is across our economy. That is across, these different elements of culture. Whether Donald Trump really cares and believes in these things, J.D. Vance does. The people behind J.D. Vance do. And so it's just a free-for-all against all of us and our families, and we definitely have to stay on top of them.
I'm glad you mentioned the executive orders. There were a few that came out. I know last week we were thinking that orders were going to come out targeting nonprofits. That didn't necessarily happen, although we shouldn't think that it isn't going to happen. But there were a few that were problematic. So you talked about the discipline in K through 12 schools. So sort of removing the Obama and Biden era reforms to school discipline, not taking away the sort of what we know, based on years of research, right, and reports, that kids of color, Black kids in particular, are targeted, right, with school discipline disproportionate to others, and those guidelines that the Obama administration put in to make sure that our children weren't being over policed, right, in their schools, those got rolled back. Right. I think you mentioned the disparate impacts. Right. So essentially an executive order that is attempting to roll back the Civil Rights Act. Right. An executive order attempting to roll back the Civil Rights Act. Right. Which is, you can't do. So, we always want to say that up front. But it is trying to send a message that the doors are open for discrimination. Not only are the doors open for discrimination, but the administration will not fight for people that are being targeted. There was accreditation in schools. Right. Essentially, trying to continue to say that any schools that are, teaching history accurately, right, that are also paying attention to disparate impact and discrimination. If you're doing those things, that you'll lose accreditation. Also looking at providing accreditation for those schools that could not get accredited before, right, for a whole host of reasons. So there were those, and there was also the HBCU EO, which essentially was a nothing burger. Right. It added no new money. Right. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris added $17 billion to support HBCUs,
which it glosses over.
Right.
It ignores.
That's right.
Right.
So it adds nothing. All it does is place an office to oversee HBCUs inside of the the White House. So in that one in particular is like, why do you need that? Why do you have to oversee what's happening?
Well, and it comes
HBCUs?
at a time, too, where they are now ramping up enforcement on defaulted student loans. We know coming out of the pandemic in particular, there was a huge push around forgiving student loan debt. They've pulled back some of the changes that the Biden-Harris administration made around some of the payment plans. I mean, like, you know, I am locked in at a 2.8. I'm so lucky, 2.8% on my house. But student loans, you know, people are paying way more than that, and the way it adds on to their payments, it's unconscionable what is happening right now. And so when you think about HBCU students and the funding gap that happens with HBCUs, the fact that there's no new money, he's cutting back on any type of investments in diversity, equity, inclusion. He's dismantling the Department of Education. There are changes that can happen that would impact Pell Grant, which would negatively impact HBCU students as well. So that definitely signals to me that was a try to like slip something in and make it seem like he's not that bad, as if to kind of divide black people from everyone else.
Right.
But, you know, we're smarter than the average bear. We see what's going on. Right. And it's just really, you know, just even seeing the EO that came out, Adrianne, yesterday around Act Blue, just like, they're very clearly painting a picture of who they are. They're letting us know who they are. Yep. And the challenge for all of us is to make sure we find where we fit in, find our people, and make sure we are continuing to push back, because I think I heard you say this maybe in an earlier show, we can't comply. Don't comply in advance. That's right. And we need to stand firm, because what is happening right now, it's not just that it's not okay or it's not right. Like, when people talk about, like, this is fascism, this is anti-democracy, this is, like, you know, authoritarianism, like, this is, you're going after your political opposition and the way in which they're able to, like, mobilize.
That's right.
And so secret money.
I feel like we have I feel like we have a lot to talk about, and then you have a lot to say. So I'm actually going to ask you to hang on here with me for a minute, and because I threw in all those executive orders at the last minute. I do want to come back and talk about them a little bit more. So stay with us here at the Black Pack. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. A federal judge will allow video of Sean Diddy Combs assaulting Cassie Ventura to be shown at his upcoming trial. The 2016 footage shows Combs chasing, kicking, and dragging Ventura. His trial begins May 5th, and he has pleaded not guilty. Despite threats from the Trump administration, Chicago Public Schools will move forward with a Black Student Success Committee. The group will oversee the Black Student Success Plan, which launched in February and is facing a legal challenge. A new survey in St. Petersburg, Florida found more possible hidden graves at the former Oaklawn Cemetery. Ground radar detected 7 possible graves under a parking lot at Tropicana Field, where a black cemetery once stood. And Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is launching Shine LA, a new city beautification effort ahead of the FIFA World Cup and 2028 Olympics. Starting Saturday, residents can volunteer each month to paint, plant, and clean neighborhoods. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Tough drive in West Covina. This is a crash on the eastbound side of the 10 Pass Holt. Carpool and left lanes are blocked. Delays pushing back all the way from Valley Boulevard. In Glendale, a wreck on the 134 westbound at Pacific is blocking the left lane. That drive loading up away from Glendale Avenue on the eastbound side of the 210 in Monrovia. They're clearing a crash out of the right lane, and that drive is a mess all the way out of Pasadena, leaving the 134 freeway. Redlands, a crash on the 210 eastbound before San Bernardino Avenue has that right lane blocked. Delays away from 5th Street.
Welcome to the newly renovated Toyota of Carson. We want to say yes to every offer.
During our tax time sales event, get 0 down payment options, plus rates as low as 1.99%. Then receive an additional $1,000 trade-in bonus.
Toyota of Carson.
Is this the title?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers are healthy for Game 3 tonight at Minnesota. Only one player is on their injury list, backup power forward Maxi Kleber. Kleber has not played since January 25th because of a foot injury. The Lakers and Minnesota are tied at 1-1 in the best of 7. 6:30 tip-off tonight on ESPN. Because the Denver Nuggets are the number 4 seed in the Western Conference playoffs and the Clippers are number 5, the Nuggets have the home court advantage in their first-round series. The Clippers, up 2-1 in the best of 7, can take away the home court advantage with a win Saturday in Game 4. A big-time opportunity for the Clippers. 3 p.m. tip-off at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. The Dodgers start a 3-game series at home tonight against Pittsburgh. The Dodgers, in 3rd place in the NL West, have lost 3 of their last 4. Since that 8-0 start, they have not looked like defending World Series champions. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Comedy Connection series featuring KBLA's Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady. We're going to transform relationship disasters into stand-up material live at Inglewood's Miracle Theater on May 31st at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My clinical team will disclose all of your dating woes, while the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady, has hand-selected supremely talented comedians to roast all of our tragic relationship choices. I dare you to bring your ex's phone number because Ray, he's going to text it live and the crowd will be sourcing emojis. Tickets are moving swiftly, so don't hesitate to grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before I diagnose your dating history as a pre-existing condition.
LA property owners, join us to house more veterans. By accepting veteran housing vouchers, you will receive guaranteed rent while providing a stable and safe home that will make a difference in their lives. Help house our heroes. Expedited processing and dedicated support for property owners is available because every veteran deserves a place to call home. Email houseourvets@lacity.org, HOUSEOURVETS @lacity.org for more information.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
So we are back, and there is just a ton of energy, as you all can tell from my conversation with journalist Anoa Changa. So we're wrapping up the conversation with Anoa, and I also want to bring in and continue that energy. And I feel like I'm not going to do a good seamless transition here, but I'm gonna do it anyway because Anoa, you were in Atlanta, and joining us now is YT Bell, who is one of the architects and organizers organizers of the State of the People Power Tour that's kicking off in Atlanta this weekend. So in my mind, I was going to do this sort of handoff from, one part of Atlanta to another part of Atlanta. But YT, thank you for joining. I know that you are extraordinarily busy right at this moment.
Yes, but I am super delighted to be here with y'all. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share about the State of the People Power Tour.
Of course. So I wanted, Noah, I just wanted to give you a chance because we were on a roll going into the break, but I wanted to give you an opportunity just to, close out any thoughts that you have on, we talked about the executive orders that just came down. We know that there would likely be more as this man heads into his 100 days. And then, just what the energy feels like for you as folks are doing the work on the ground in Atlanta as well.
Yeah, I just want to say, this is a great transition, actually, because like we were just saying before the break, we need everyone to come together. We need to squad up and really keep our not just our foot on their necks, but also, how do we build the power we know we need in our communities for the long haul? And it seems like the work that YT and everyone else doing around the State of the People Power Tour and kicking off here in Atlanta is just, the right, impetus for us to, just kick it into the next year. So there's a lot of energy. I mean, we have a Public Service Commission race here in the state of Georgia, which people are starting to learn about. We have municipal elections this year. We won the state seven municipal elections. So there's a lot of reasons for us to be paying attention and getting engaged. And so folks like YT are definitely leading that charge. So I will turn it back over to you, and I'll keep listening for the rest of the conversation.
All right. And no, I appreciate you joining us and bringing us your thoughts on everything that's happening right now. But YT, so the State of the People Power Tour. So I had Angela on last week talking about what this is. It is 10 cities. Actually 12, I think we sort of clarified, but going to 10 states and really seeing it as an opportunity to galvanize our folks in this moment, to galvanize Black folks in this moment, which feels important, not just, as having everything that's happening around the 100 days or the 100 days of this administration as a backdrop, but because this is actually something that we need to be doing right now, right? We know that our community is under attack. And as Noah said, it's important for us to be thinking about how we're organizing and gathering ourselves in this moment. And the State of the People Power Tour is the perfect opportunity to make that happen between now and Juneteenth, right? Which is what we're doing.
Correct. Yeah. So to your point and Noah's point, we're meeting this moment, especially because our community wants a place of healing and also wants to know how can we move as a collective force together. And so, it's prime time for the people, the State of People Power Tour to be launching in the city of Atlanta, in Georgia, as we are amplifying local voices. We're delivering tangible resources based off what the community members said they need in this moment. And we're building that momentum to develop that national Black agenda starting right here tomorrow in Atlanta, Georgia.
Tomorrow. I'm glad you emphasized that, because when I started and I said, I know you are very busy right now as we speak. The kickoff is tomorrow. And I think it's very exciting in that I think the organizing of this has been going on for all of maybe 3 weeks, right? Where folks came together and said, exactly what you just said, we need this. We need a space of healing, but we also need a space to strategize. And so I'll ask you the same question I ask Noah. What is the energy? Because you've been working with local groups, you've been working with the folks at the national level. What is the energy right now on the ground as people are starting to show up in Atlanta? And then what do you all have planned for the next 2 days?
Yeah, so the energy has been phenomenal on the ground. People really wanted this space after seeing some of the national protests and saying, okay, so what are we doing that is directly focused on us as Black folks, right? Because we know some of the EOs and administrative changes have had a detrimental impact, especially in our rural area and in the Black Belt region of the state outside of the metro, in addition to the metro. And so people are really excited to be in community with folks. They're excited to be learning about self-sufficiency and training and tools that they can use in order to meet this moment and kind of live off the land that they have. because they don't know, who is going to come and save us. And we know that we're our own liberators, right, in this moment. And so having that clear agenda and trusting each other and working as a collective is the only way that we can illustrate our power and get the things that we need as we dream of the things that we need as a collective of Black folks. And so that's what we're doing with the tour. We're bringing together grassroots organizers, local leaders. So this is city council, county commissioners from across the state, creators, educators, faith-based leaders, and we're listening, we're serving, and we're acting in real time as a collective. And so tomorrow we'll start in Atlanta at Atlanta Technical College on Metropolitan Parkway, where we'll be doing educational workshops on sustainability, how do we meet this moment, on know your rights. All of those trainings and a myriad of others, up to 24, will be presented on tomorrow. In addition to that, we're going to be brought into the space by Joy Reid, as well as a lot of national partners that we're going to talk about what does it look like and where are we at with these 100 days almost of this administration. And then we will also have, of course, Congressman Hank Johnson, who's going to stop by right before the field hearing tomorrow. Well, he'll be talking about his fight in D.C., but also why it's important that we get on the record in this field hearing that's being led by the minority leader in the House and the Senate. And then we will conclude the day with additional workshops on health care, on reproductive health care, on access to capital and resources in order to meet this moment. So we're really providing the resources that the community needs for day one. And then on day two, we're going to activate that by basically the theme is let's build power together by hosting a rally.
Well, let me ask you this, because it sounds like, one of the things that's great, I think, about the sort of design and the care of the State of the People Power Tour is that, because you just went through a lot, and it really, it's a reflection for me of what it means to try to, one, to organize with care, but also to organize in a truly inclusive way, right? So you talked about layers, right, of our community that will be there, right? So not just national folks coming up to do a panel, moderated by Miss Joyanne Reid, right? But how many workshops did you say there were going to be?
So we have up to 24, and we were very intentional about our process. It started with community, and we mixed in some of the national folks' perspective, but also a lot of local folks' perspective. As you heard me mention, there are going to be speakers through this weekend from Augusta to Camilla to Atlanta to Muskogee that are going to be speaking and facilitating panels. And I know I mentioned just a few of them, but a lot of the panels are also going to be Black women leading and people leading change, empowering Black veterans, because we wanted to be as inclusive and intentional as we could. But we also wanted folks to know how to organize to meet this moment, and that looks a little different than how it started, but also what is community building and sustainability of that, which we will have tons of workshops on. So it's a myriad of national workshops, city folks throughout the state that are also going to be presented, but also elected leaders saying how we've been filling in the gap.
Yeah. So, YT, I'm going to ask you to stay with me as we come forward. I want to talk a little bit more about what this looks like and what it means. We're sort of weaving together a national tour, but it has real meaning for folks on the ground. And you started to talk about some of that. I want to come back because there's also, I know, this dimension of sort of making sure that we're being of service, right, to the communities where the tour is going to be. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So this is the Black Pack here at KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least liked to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, also known as AD, a type of dementia that affects memory, thinking, and behavior, making everyday tasks challenging. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? There are things you can do to help reduce your risk for developing AD. Managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure is crucial. Staying physically active, maintaining social connections, eating a healthy diet, and keeping your mind engaged with activities like reading or puzzles can all contribute to brain health. It's also important to recognize some common signs and symptoms of early AD, such as forgetfulness that causes problems with everyday life, asking the same question a few times in a row, and difficulty concentrating on basic tasks. If you see these signs in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
We are continuing our conversation about the State of the People Power Tour that is kicking off, rightly so, in Atlanta, and I'm so excited to be stealing a bunch of time from YT Bell, who has been doing yo woman's work in making sure that the State of the People Power Tour kickoff in Atlanta is successful, and so I want to thank you. I know I'm taking up a lot of your time. And so I appreciate you for getting on and letting folks know how you all are thinking about this work and why it's so important to be done, not just in Atlanta, but of course in the other cities where the tour is going to go across the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to sort of get back to the tour is described as existing at the intersection of healing, resistance, and mobilization. And when you were sort of describing all of the things that are happening, right, the workshops that are really about, I mean, I imagine they're about, training folks, making sure folks that have information on a whole range of things, including understanding what's happening right now, as well as, how to organize and mobilize in our communities. I think you started to say, and I may have cut you off, that there's going to be a rally, right, which is sort of the mobilization part. And then there's this healing part. And you said, making sure that, being of service to our community. So I wanted to ask you just to describe those pieces. What is the service part of the tour in Atlanta going to look like? And then the mobilization work as well to get people out to hear folks at the rally.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, of course, this whole movement is rooted in healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We showed up, we have felt despair, and it's time to also build that momentum, to acknowledge that, but also build that momentum for resistance and organizing and action in this moment. And so, actually, tomorrow, when we start the tour on April 26th, at 9 a.m., we're going to start our day of service, and that's giving back to the community, but also healing to a certain degree, because we will be doing farming. So at the initial start of this idea of the tour in Atlanta, we got together community members and everybody that was interested in being a part of it, and I asked them, what type of service could we do? And a lot of folks said, I want to learn about seeding. I want to learn about planting. I want to learn how to use the land that I have to take care of me and my family and our Black community. And so we will be doing, we will be going to a local farm in Atlanta. Everybody eats together on the west side, ATM. And then also we'll be working with Gooder to develop boxes for needy families, as well as dropping those off. And in addition to that, we will also be doing a community cleanup on Metropolitan Parkway. We had so many people to say, hey, we want to serve the community. So we have a variation of options for tomorrow, and we'll start that off at 9 a.m. As it relates to the mobilization piece, which I mentioned outside of the educational workshops that we'll be doing, we will be having a hearing. We'll be having a rally. We'll have a hearing tomorrow for sure. But we're having a rally on Sunday at the Dream Center in Decatur, Georgia, where we will be building power and rallying actions in real time. And we have a slew full of special guests that will be there. Congresswoman Nikema Williams, of course, Angela Rye will be there, Tamika Mallory, but we'll also have local folks. So the commissioner in Augusta, Jordan Johnson, Councilman Corey Morgan from Camilla, Georgia, will also be there, in addition to a mixture of other entertainers and influencers, and of course, national partners.
Yeah, this really is, and I appreciate you all. And I know that folks are working right now in Raleigh and in Durham and in Birmingham and in Montgomery, right, to sort of pull together these important 2 days of community engagement. But I appreciate the way that you all, again, are sort of modeling for other places. And there's, you're saying 10 cities or 10 cities, 12 cities, I think it is actually. Angela's going to clarify that for us. But that's not the only plan, right? There's also a plan to do a Juneteenth gathering in Baltimore, and then I think a plan to do cities coming out of that. So I do feel like you all are modeling and sort of got thrown into the fire, right? In terms of being the first, right? But really modeling, I feel like the embodiment of the idea, right, behind this tour, which is to make sure that we're bringing forward those folks who do the work on the ground, right? Making sure that we're lifting up what that work is, lifting up those voices. I love the idea that you all talked to folks and said, what kind of service can we be to our community, and folks said, let's feed our people. I think that's it is the embodiment, I think, of the spirit of the State of the People Power Tour. The one question I wanted to ask you, though, and I know that this is things that folks are also thinking about in the local cities as they're preparing across the country, and that is, how are you all thinking about what happens when the tour leaves? Right. After Angela Rye leaves, right, and after Tamika leaves, and after all the folks from the national move on, right, to the next city, how are you all thinking about holding folks together to continue this idea of both strategy and planning and organizing and mobilizing, and also service?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So that is definitely something that a lot of us have been thinking about. And actually, right after the tour, we're telling people, hey, this is just a tour stop, but that doesn't mean that the work stops. And so we want to keep that momentum by convening folks after the tour to kind of figure out what is our pathway for collective action and connection and long-term engagement throughout the state. So the plan is surely to meet everybody, to convene in the state of Georgia around after the State of the People Power. So after the stop has commenced, and then think through what are the actions that we can do as a collective in the state of Georgia, because we are our own liberators, we are our legislators, and now we're going to take back our power in a very real way.
And I imagine that folks, that you know, the stop, quote unquote, right, is happening in Atlanta. I imagine that as you all come out of this weekend, that there are folks in other parts of the state. I like the idea of pulling folks together from across the state. I imagine that there are folks in Augusta, right, in Savannah, in Albany, right, in Columbus, right, that would also want to do something similar, although maybe not at the same scale. And it seems like this is an opportunity also to help folks figure out how they're pulling together their local communities across the state as well.
Yep, that's exactly what's going to happen. We're actually thinking through what it looks like to have listening sessions in regions of the state. To also make sure that even if your issue is education, how do you see it? What are the biggest challenges that you're facing? And then come up with a collective agenda that we can share across the region throughout the entire state. So this won't just be an Atlanta effort. We're trying to figure out how do you feel intergenerational power with engaging young folks and legacy voices as well during this time, but how do we sustain this movement for the long term? Because, you know, our legacy elders have tons of knowledge about what has happened, and history repeats itself. And so that's what we want our young individuals to also know and understand, but also understand that they're our defenders of democracy to meet this moment. And so the work will continue. We'll take a regional approach. We'll listen to folks, and we'll convene folks in order to figure out what is the agenda that we're going to move forward and what's our path forward for victory here in the state.
Okay. Y.T. Bell, who's I have taken up precious time as you are, preparing to receive folks coming into Atlanta tomorrow for this important work. I've had a couple of folks that I was trying to get on the show, national folks who were like, I can't come on the show because I'll be in the air because I'm going to Atlanta. So I know that folks are definitely coming, and I wish you all luck. I know that you don't need it because I know that the intention is real and the spirit is real in terms of how people are going to show up over the next 2 days. But I think that you all are really setting an example and a model for how we can be organizing in this moment, while folks are trying to say that we're absent from the resistance or trying to say that we're absent from the opposition. We know that that's not true, and Atlanta's going to show us how you do it this weekend. So YT Bell, appreciate you so much for joining the show and sharing with us what's going on in Atlanta this weekend.
No problem. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at one of the local stops in one of the 12 cities in the 10 states.
I will see you soon. All right. So when we come forward, we're going to listen to Angela Rye describe once again what this overall effort is going to look like. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the Black Pack. Stay with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. A federal judge will allow video of Sean Diddy Combs assaulting Cassie Ventura to be shown at his upcoming trial. The 2016 footage shows Combs chasing, kicking, and dragging Ventura. His trial begins May 5th, and he has pleaded not guilty. Despite threats from the Trump administration, Chicago Public Schools will move forward with a Black Student Success Committee. The group will oversee the Black Student Success Plan, which launched in February and is facing a legal challenge.